And for more on this issue and others plaguing women in the workplace, I'm joined by Jennifer Hazelton. She's the founder and CEO of CROCUS, an e-commerce company. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's great to be here.
Jennifer, as a former TV reporter, what do you make of this phenomenon of female reporters being harassed by men with vulgarities while live on TV? Why do you think this is happening?
Well, Michelle, as you know, it's not uncommon for any of us who have ever worked in front of the camera in a news capacity, in a sports reporting capacity, to be confronted with unruly watchers, fans, people who may or may not be intoxicated sometimes. But it definitely does seem like women get more of a brunt of this than men do. And it certainly seems like the women get more aggressive, crude comments made towards them. And this trend really seemed to start in 2014 with the comedian John Cain's sort of faux news report highlighting this kind of an example. And it seems to have only intensified since then. Certainly, you don't see a lot of women spectators heckling male reporters in this way, and it would be
you don't see
nice.
You don't see male spectators heckling male reporters.
Exactly, you're exactly right, and it certainly would be nice if all spectators would give these women the same courtesy when they're going about their jobs.
Well, let's talk about the challenges that women face in the workplace. Do you think that this is particular to the journalism industry? What are some of the industries that women you find have the toughest time in as compared to men?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I certainly don't think it's unique to journalism. I think you'll find different levels of this sort of thing across all different industries. And I think some of it's societal and some of it's circumstantial. I think women are still viewed differently in many cases in the workplace. And then there are instances where women, we do tend to take more time off from work. We do to raise children and those sorts of things. And that can push us back a step. I think Sheryl Sandberg was onto something in her book Lean In when she talked about women needing to be more aggressive in negotiations and to go for more challenging positions and not be afraid to, sort of go for that big promotion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned Sheryl Sandberg and negotiations. Yes. Women still face major pay discrimination. A full-time female employee in the U.S. earned about 82% of what a man earned last year. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Why do you think that there's such significant wage discrepancies? Do you think that if women negotiated harder, that gap would decrease?
No, I don't think it's going to close the gap completely. And I think, this is also on an individual by individual basis. I think some women probably do a very good job of negotiating for themselves. I do think, like I said, there are some circumstances, women taking more time off from the workplace, tending to be attracted to jobs that maybe aren't as highly paid might contribute. But I also think as well, there are these societal, intrinsically sort of traditional roles, the way women are viewed in the workplace versus men, that still may linger and are slowly closing. We're not there yet. I think, now we're in a place in the United States where more women are going to college than men, graduate degrees. And I think over time, the gap will narrow just by the byproduct of who will be qualified for higher level positions. You'll just have more women being
Jennifer,
qualified.
It's quite interesting because the U.S. as a developed country actually ranks quite low when you compare it to other countries. The Economist, for example, they did a glass ceiling index rate of equal treatment at work. It looked at a number of factors: pay, labor force participation, childcare costs, maternity. And Norway came out on top, followed by Sweden and Finland. The U.S. was number 17. 17. Why do you think that is, and what do you think can be learned from this?
Well, I think, the Nordic countries are held up as an example for parity across the world, and I think that as they should be. There are a lot of really positive things that we can sort of take from what the Nordic cultures are doing and apply them elsewhere. But they're also unique. They're sort of in a different set of circumstances in the United States. These tend to be very homogenized countries. They're very small. If you add up the populations of all the Nordic countries combined, they equal the size of the population of Texas. So by comparison, they're very tiny compared to the United States. And they have a very different style of government. They tend to have a much more developed social welfare state than the United States does, and their government tends to put more mandates on businesses than the United States does. And so in order for us, I think, if we were to move in that direction as a country, we'd have to take steps in that direction. And while there might be some positive benefits, there'd also be some trade-offs that we would have to sort of wrestle with and come to terms with from a business standpoint and an economic standpoint.
Jennifer, we talk about balancing family life and career, and yes, women do have particular challenges with pregnancy and child rearing. Jennifer, can women have it all? Can that balance between family and career be attained, and what does it take?
You know, I think the famous journalist here in the United States, Barbara Walters, said it best. Women can have it all, but they just can't have it all at once. And I think my personal opinion is there is a lot of truth to that. I think we can have the big career, we can have the family, the husband, the children, the social life outside of our work and family life, but we may not be able to have everything all at the same time. And it requires an ever-changing balancing act to try to let these different components into your life. And it may not happen all at the same time. Whether we're ever going to get to a point where that's possible, I don't know. But it does seem that we are getting closer to it.
Okay, the balancing act continues. Thank you so much, Jennifer Hazelton, founder and CEO of CROCUS, an e-commerce company.